You look up at the night sky and feel a pull in your chest, a homesickness for a place you've never been. What if that feeling isn't a metaphor? What if it's a memory? According to the most ancient and hidden histories of our galaxy, humanity did not originate on Earth. We are the children of refugees, the descendants of an ancient, majestic race from the Lyra constellation who survived a galactic holocaust, fled across the stars, and planted the seed of their civilization here. This isn't science fiction. This is the story of our cosmic forefathers, and their blood runs in your veins. The Lyrans are said to be one of the oldest humanoid races in the galaxy, a people who laid down the seeds of human life across star systems long before Earth's recorded history. Their origin traces back to the Lyra constellation, a small but significant cluster of stars visible in the northern hemisphere. To most, Lyra is remembered through the brilliance of Vega, its brightest star. To those who carry fragments of ancient memory, however, Lyra is more than a point of light. It is the cradle of our kind, the home of the first cosmic ancestors who would later branch out into the stars, leaving traces of themselves in cultures, myths, and even in the genetic blueprint of humanity. When we speak of the Lyrans, we are not speaking merely of aliens in the cold science fiction sense. We are speaking of family. We are speaking of a race that embodies the raw spirit of exploration, the hunger for growth, and the painful lessons of conflict and survival. To think of the Lyrans is to think of ourselves, magnified across eons. They are remembered as tall, often fair-skinned beings, with piercing eyes that carried both wisdom and fire. Some accounts describe them as resembling humans so closely that if one stood among us today, you might not even know, save for an aura, a presence, an undeniable gravity that would make them impossible to ignore. The human connection to Lyra. Before diving deeper into their story, let's pause and acknowledge why the Lyrans matter to us at all. After all, billions of stars and countless civilizations could exist across the galaxy. Why do certain traditions, spiritual accounts, and channeled messages point so specifically to Lyra? Why is Lyra called the birthplace of humanity? The answer lies in the idea of galactic seeding. According to many ancient traditions and modern accounts, life in our galaxy did not evolve in isolated pockets. Rather, advanced races carried with them the seeds of life, biological, energetic, and spiritual, and scattered them across worlds capable of sustaining growth. The Lyrans were one of the earliest and most active participants in this great galactic mission. They did not simply exist for themselves. They were teachers, explorers, and sometimes warriors who ensured that consciousness would bloom wherever it could. On Earth, echoes of their presence remain. Ancient myths tell of sky gods descending to teach humanity the arts of agriculture, architecture, astronomy, and spirituality. Whether it is the Anunnaki of Mesopotamia, the shining gods of Egypt, or the divine teachers of the Americas, the archetype remains strikingly consistent. Beings from the heavens arrived, taught, and left, promising one day to return. While some of these myths may blur into the stories of other star races, like the Pleiadians or the Sirians, at the root of them all, many point back to the original travelers, the Lyrans, the first humanoids. What makes the Lyrans so distinct is that they are believed to be among the first humanoid species in our galaxy, long before the rise of human civilization, long before the Earth had even cooled from its primordial chaos. The Lyrans had already risen to a high state of culture and technology. Their world was not unlike Earth. Accounts describe lush planets with vast green valleys, oceans of deep sapphire blue, and skies filled with constellations alien yet familiar. It is said that their societies were built on balance, a balance between technological progress and spiritual wisdom. The Lyrans were dreamers, artists, builders, and philosophers. Yet, as with any race, they were not without their struggles. Their history is not a perfect golden age. It is a tapestry woven with both beauty and tragedy, exploration and exile, triumph and downfall. What makes them our forefathers is not just their genetic contribution, but their journey. For in their journey, we find reflections of our own human story, the spirit of exploration. The Lyrans, much like us, were restless beings. They carried in their essence an insatiable drive to explore, to reach beyond the known. Their star system was their nursery, but never their prison. As their civilizations advanced, they built ships capable of crossing the vast distances of space, moving beyond Lyra to neighboring star systems. Some traditions describe the Lyrans as the first spacefarers of our galaxy, pioneers who charted paths others would later follow. In their journeys, they seeded new worlds, leaving behind fragments of themselves. These colonies would, over time, develop their own identities, leading to the rise of other well-known star races, the Pleiadians, the Vega colonies, and others. This diaspora would eventually spread Lyran influence across vast regions of the galaxy, and yet, as history so often shows, with expansion comes conflict. The great conflicts of Lyra. It is important to understand that the Lyrans were not merely beings of light. Like humanity, they wrestled with duality, the struggle between creation and destruction, love and fear, unity and division. Their expansion into other systems inevitably brought them into contact, and sometimes into conflict, with other powerful races. One of the most significant of these adversaries was the Draconian Empire. The Draconians, often described as reptilian beings, were themselves an ancient race with a very different philosophy. Where the Lyrans valued freedom, creativity, and diversity, the Draconians valued control, hierarchy, and dominance. The meeting of these two vastly different civilizations sparked some of the earliest and most devastating galactic wars. For the Lyrans, this period was both a tragedy and a catalyst. Many of their homeworlds were destroyed, forcing waves of Lyran refugees to scatter across the galaxy. And yet, in that scattering, seeds were sown. Seeds that would eventually grow into the diverse human-like civilizations we now associate with Pleiadians, Vegans, Andromedans, and even Earth humans. In other words, the suffering of the Lyrans birthed a legacy that endures to this day, Lyra as the cradle of humanity. When we call the Lyrans our cosmic forefathers, it is not a poetic flourish, but a recognition of this very process. From Lyra came the first explorers. From Lyra came the first galactic wanderers who brought their essence into countless worlds. From Lyra came the ancestors who, through conflict and migration, scattered themselves like stardust, ensuring that their legacy would endure. On Earth, we may be one of the youngest expressions of that legacy, but the imprint is unmistakable. Our myths, our inner yearnings, even the shape of our bodies echo their story. The reason we look human, the reason we walk upright, the reason we carry the spark of curiosity in our eyes. All of it, according to this tradition, is because once upon a time, our ancestors from Lyra carried those traits into the universe and planted them here. A personal connection, but let us step back from the cosmic scale for a moment and reflect. If this is true, what does it mean for you and me, here and now? It means that our sense of longing when we gaze at the stars is not just imagination, it is memory. It means that the challenges we face as humanity today, our struggles with division, with power, with the temptation of destruction, are not new problems, but echoes of struggles our forefathers once faced. It means that we, like them, carry the potential for greatness, the ability to rise beyond fear, and the responsibility to remember who we truly are. In a way, the story of the Lyrans is not just the story of some distant alien race. It is our story, told across the backdrop of stars. And as we remember them, we begin to remember ourselves. The culture of the Lyrans. To understand the Lyrans not as abstractions, but as real beings, as our forefathers, we must imagine what their daily lives may have been like. Accounts from contactees, spiritual channels, and ancient myths all paint a picture of a race that, while advanced, was also deeply attuned to the rhythms of life. The Lyrans are often described as people of the land and sky, beings who balance the practical with the spiritual. Imagine great sprawling cities made not of harsh stone or cold metal, but of luminous materials that shimmered with the colors of their twin suns. Their architecture blended seamlessly with nature. Homes were designed around flowing rivers, towering trees, and crystal-like structures that seemed to grow from the earth itself. Some Lyrans lived in pastoral communities, cultivating crops and raising animals, while others became artists, musicians, and philosophers. They valued beauty and expression as much as they valued technology. Music was central to their lives, not merely as entertainment, but as a means of healing, communication, and alignment with the cosmos. Their instruments, some say, could create tones that resonated with the very frequencies of the universe, weaving harmony into their environments. At the core of Lyran culture was a belief in interconnectedness. They viewed themselves as part of a grand web of life, stretching not just across their world, but across the galaxy. This worldview infused them with a deep respect for freedom, diversity, and the natural flow of existence. Spiritual philosophy. Spiritually, the Lyrans understood themselves as eternal souls having physical experiences. To them, incarnation was a sacred journey, a way for spirit to learn, to create, and to grow through form. They believed in the cycles of life and rebirth, not as punishment, but as opportunity. Death, in their eyes, was not an end, but a return, a homecoming to spirit before choosing another adventure. They also practiced a form of meditation that connected them to what we might call the Akashic records, a living memory of all experiences in the universe. Through this connection, they sought guidance, healing, and wisdom from their ancestors and future selves. This may sound mystical to us, but for the Lyrans, it was simply part of daily life. Perhaps most striking of all was their reverence for freedom. They believed that consciousness thrived best when allowed to express itself without domination or control. This ideal was both their greatest strength and, ironically, one of the reasons they later clashed so violently with other galactic powers who did not share the same values. Lyran appearance and presence. Descriptions of the Lyrans often emphasize their human-like form. Tall, strong, with features that mirror humanity's but often more pronounced. Sharper cheekbones, deeper eyes, a presence that radiated both nobility and warmth. Their eyes, in particular, are often noted, piercing, intelligent, filled with a depth that could disarm anyone they gazed upon. But more than their physical appearance, what truly set them apart was their presence. People who claim to have encountered them describe feeling an overwhelming sense of recognition, as if meeting a long-lost relative. There is a comfort, a familiarity that makes sense if indeed we carry their essence within us. The seeds of earthly myths. If all of this sounds strangely familiar, it may be because echoes of the Lyrans have survived in our myths. Consider the Norse gods, tall, radiant beings descending from the heavens to guide humanity. Consider the Olympians of Greece, described as shining immortals with human-like forms and extraordinary powers. Even in the stories of the Native American star people, we hear whispers of beings who came from the Pleiades or Lyra to teach, to guide, and sometimes to intermarry with humans. These stories may not be mere fantasy. They may be fragmented memories, tales passed down through oral traditions that dimly recall encounters with our cosmic forefathers. If this is so, then humanity has been telling the story of the Lyrans for thousands of years without even realizing it. The first lessons for humanity. The Lyrans, in their visits to young civilizations, were not conquerors. They came as teachers. They introduced early humans to the cycles of agriculture, the alignment of the stars, the principles of mathematics and geometry. More importantly, they tried to instill within us their core value, freedom. Freedom, they believed, was not just a political idea, but a spiritual necessity. To be free meant to align with one's true essence, to express without fear, to grow without chains. This was the gift they attempted to leave humanity, though history shows how difficult it has been for us to fully embrace it. The shadow of conflict. Yet, even as they taught and seeded life, the Lyrans were not free from their own struggles. Their history was marked by wars, particularly with the Draconian forces. Imagine the heartbreak of a people who valued freedom and creativity, finding themselves locked in violent struggle with an empire that valued conquest and control. These conflicts scarred the Lyrans deeply. Worlds were lost, families torn apart, generations grew up in exile, scattered across distant star systems. And yet, it is in this scattering that their legacy became even more powerful, like a great oak shedding acorns in the wind. the Lyrans ensured that no matter how many of their worlds fell, their essence would continue to thrive elsewhere. Exile and legacy. This exile is perhaps the most human part of their story. Imagine being forced from your homeland, carrying only memories, songs, and the determination to survive. Imagine leaving behind the lands of your ancestors, never to return, and yet still holding on to the hope that your people's spirit will endure. This is not just their story, it is ours. Humanity too has known exile, migration, and diaspora. The pain of leaving home and the hope of building anew are themes deeply woven into our own collective experience. In this, the Lyrans are not distant strangers, they are mirrors of ourselves. The Lyran Diaspora begins. As their worlds fell, the Lyrans fled into the stars. Some found refuge in the Pleiades, where they gave rise to what we now call the Pleiadian race. Others settled in Vega, Sirius, and Andromeda. Each colony developed its own culture, shaped by the environment of its new home, but all carried the Lyran spark. This is why today, in metaphysical traditions, so many star races resemble humanity. They are all branches of the same tree, scattered by the winds of war but rooted in the same soil, Lyra. We can see that the Lyrans were not simply another alien race in the cosmos. They were our forefathers, both in spirit and in form. Their legacy is written in our DNA, in our myths, in our yearning for freedom, and in our restless drive to explore the unknown. To remember the Lyrans is to remember ourselves, our origins, our struggles, and our potential. It is to recognize that the story of humanity is not just an Earth story. It is a galactic story, one chapter in a saga that stretches back millions of years. The Great Galactic Diaspora. When a civilization faces catastrophe, it reveals its essence. Some collapse inward, consumed by fear. Others rise to the challenge, scattering like seeds, ensuring that even if their homeland is lost, their spirit survives. The Lyrans, our cosmic forefathers, belonged firmly to the latter. Their diaspora was not only a story of survival, it was the genesis of nearly every major humanoid star race that followed. The fall of the Lyran worlds. The beginning of the diaspora is always told with a heavy tone, for it was born of tragedy. The Lyran worlds, once thriving centers of art, spirituality, and technological brilliance, became the targets of the Draconian Empire. The Draconians were not newcomers to the galaxy. They had carved empires of domination long before humanity's first breath. To them, the Lyrans were a threat, not because of sheer military might, but because of their ideals. Where the Draconians believed in strict hierarchies, submission, and conquest, the Lyrans believed in individuality, freedom, and creative diversity. The clash was inevitable. And when it came, it was brutal. Whole planets were reduced to ash. Lyran fleets fought valiantly, but were ultimately overpowered by the relentless reptilian forces. Survivors fled into the cosmos, leaving behind the cradle of Lyra, knowing they might never return. It is said that many of the Lyran homeworlds still lie in ruins, silent memorials to what was once a flourishing civilization. Yet from that devastation, something remarkable emerged. Seeds in the stars. The fleeing Lyrans scattered in every direction. Some found temporary refuge in uninhabited systems. Others joined existing civilizations, blending their knowledge with local cultures. In time, these groups would evolve into distinct lineages. The most famous of these are the Pleiadians, who settled in the Seven Sisters star cluster, and the Vegans, who developed unique spiritual and cultural paths in the star Vega of the Lyra constellation. The Pleiadians in particular would come to play a profound role in Earth's history. Their soft, guiding presence is often remembered in indigenous traditions around the world. From the Lakota's stories of the Seven Sisters to the ancient Greek myths of the Pleiades, humanity has long looked to that star cluster as home to our star family. And indeed, through the Pleiadians, the Lyran bloodline flowed directly into Earth's story. The Vegans, meanwhile, became known as keepers of deep spiritual wisdom. Unlike the Lyrans' more outwardly adventurous spirit, the Vegans turned inward, cultivating inner technologies of consciousness and healing. Their influence is said to be felt in ancient Earth practices that emphasize harmony, meditation, and energetic balance. The first galactic refugees, the Lyran Diaspora was perhaps the first great refugee crisis of our galaxy. Families torn from their homelands traveled for generations aboard massive ships seeking safety. These vessels, part ark and part sanctuary, carried not just people but entire libraries of culture, seeds of plants, and the DNA of animals from their homeworlds. The Lyrans understood that survival was not just about preserving themselves, but about preserving the full tapestry of life they represented. It is said that some of these ships wandered for centuries, their descendants becoming spacefaring nomads. To this day, certain contactees report encounters with humanoid groups who claim descent from the lost tribes of Lyra, still traveling the stars, never having settled permanently. They are the eternal wanderers, reminders of the cost of conflict and the resilience of spirit. Cultural shifts in exile. Exile changes people. The Lyrans, who left their lush, balanced homeworlds and settled in harsher environments, adapted quickly. In desert-like systems, they developed hardiness and survival skills. On worlds with dense forests or high radiation, they grew more attuned to nature and energy work. This adaptation over millennia gave rise to the diversity of humanoid star races we know today. Some retained the tall, Nordic-like appearance of their ancestors, while others developed darker skin, different eye shapes, or varying body structures in response to their new environments. Yet beneath these differences, the Lyran spark remained. The passion for freedom, the hunger for exploration, and the drive to create. The shadow of war. Though the diaspora scattered the Lyrans, it did not end the conflict with the Draconians. In fact, it spread it. Wherever Lyran refugees settled, the Draconians often followed, seeking to assert dominance. This ongoing clash became known as the Galactic Wars, a saga spanning thousands of years, shaping entire regions of the galaxy. Some Lyrans fought back fiercely, forming alliances with other races, creating pockets of resistance that would eventually weaken the Draconian grip. Others sought peace, retreating from the cycle of violence to focus on spiritual development. This dual response, resistance and retreat, would later echo in humanity's own struggles with power and peace. The birth of galactic alliances. It was during this period that the first galactic alliances began to form. The scattered Lyrans found common cause with other races, Sirians, Andromedans, Arcturians, who also valued freedom and growth. Together, they laid the groundwork for what would later be remembered as the Galactic Federation, an alliance meant to counterbalance the forces of domination. This was one of the Lyrans' greatest legacies, the idea that civilizations could cooperate across light years, united not by blood but by shared values. It was the seed of interstellar community, a concept humanity on Earth is only now beginning to dream of. Echoes on Earth. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Lyran influence quietly unfolded. Some groups of Lyran-descended beings are believed to have visited Earth directly, guiding early human societies. Others influenced us through their descendants, such as the Pleiadians and Vegans. We see traces of their diaspora in the stories of gods arriving from the sky, in the similarities of myths across continents, in the sudden leaps of knowledge in agriculture, astronomy, and spirituality. To the untrained eye, these are coincidences or myths, but to those who remember, they are the fingerprints of our cosmic ancestors. The resilience of a people. The Great Diaspora was both devastating and creative. The Lyrans lost their home, but they gained a galaxy. Their scattering ensured that their essence would never be erased. They became the cosmic forefathers not of one race, but of many. And through those many, their influence reached Earth, planting the seed of humanity itself. It is no exaggeration to say that without the diaspora, there would be no humans. Our very existence is the outcome of their survival, their courage, and their refusal to vanish into the night. The Great Diaspora was the crucible in which the Lyran's destiny was forged. What began as tragedy became the foundation of galactic civilization. Their scattering seeded worlds, birthed new races, and carried their ideals across the stars. The connection to Earth. When the Lyrans scattered across the galaxy, many thought their story would fade into exile, lost among the stars. But seeds, once carried by the wind, often find fertile ground in unexpected places. One such place was our own planet. Earth, here, at the far edge of the Milky Way, the Lyran legacy took root in ways that would forever shape the destiny of humankind. The seeding of humanity. According to many metaphysical traditions and channeled accounts, the Earth experiment, the creation of humanity as we know it, was not random. It was part of a grand design. The Lyrans, along with other allied races like the Pleiadians and Sirians, are said to have participated in what could be called a galactic project of seeding consciousness. Life already existed on Earth in primitive forms, but it was the intervention of advanced beings that accelerated evolution. Through a process that blended natural development with deliberate genetic guidance, early primates were uplifted into a form capable of hosting higher consciousness. Into this form, the spark of the Lyran essence was placed. This does not mean humanity is a copy of the Lyrans. Rather, we are their children, genetically and spiritually related, yet uniquely adapted to Earth. Where they walked under twin suns, we grew under a single one. Where they scattered in diaspora, we became rooted in the soil of one world. And yet, in our eyes, in our curiosity, in our yearning for freedom, their essence burns brightly. The sky gods of antiquity. Throughout the ancient world, myths describe powerful beings who descended from the sky to teach humanity. They are called by many names. In Mesopotamia, they were the Anunnaki, bearers of knowledge and civilization. In Egypt, they were the Netru, radiant beings who ruled as gods and pharaohs. In Greece, they appeared as the Olympians, immortal and shining. In the Americas, they were remembered as Quetzalcoatl or Viracocha, bearded sky gods who brought laws and learning. Among the Dogon people of Africa, they came as beings from Sirius, guiding astronomy and spiritual wisdom. Though the details differ, the archetype is the same. Luminous, human-like beings from the heavens who guide, teach, and sometimes intermarry with mortals. Many of these accounts are now understood by researchers in the Starseed community as fragments of Lyran and Pleiadian memory. The consistency of these myths across continents is striking. Civilizations with no contact shared stories of sky people who looked human, who carried wisdom, and who promised eventual return. Could it be coincidence? Or are these collective memories of the Lyrans' visits encoded into the mythic fabric of humanity? The gift of knowledge. The Lyrans were not just visitors, they were teachers. Ancient accounts credit the sky beings with the sudden leaps in human knowledge. Where did agriculture come from, seemingly appearing simultaneously in multiple parts of the world? Why did early civilizations leap from primitive tools to complex architecture, astronomy, and writing in a relatively short span of time? One perspective is that these were natural progressions. Another is that humanity received a helping hand. The Lyrans and their descendants, already masters of agriculture, mathematics, and star navigation, may have introduced these skills to early humans. They also introduced spiritual knowledge. The idea that humans are more than their bodies, that we are souls connected to the cosmos, echoes the Lyran philosophy. In meditation, ritual, and myth, we find traces of their teachings. The Egyptian concept of the soul's journey after death, the Hindu idea of reincarnation, the Native American stories of star ancestors, all bear the imprint of the Lyran's wisdom. The divine interbreeding. Some traditions even suggest that the Lyrans did more than teach. They interbred with humanity. Myths of gods mating with mortals, producing semi-divine offspring, may not be symbolic at all. They could be memories of genetic blending, where the Lyran essence was directly woven into human bloodlines. This idea explains why certain families or lineages throughout history claimed divine heritage. From the pharaohs of Egypt to the kings of Mesopotamia, rulers often declared themselves descended from the gods. If those gods were in fact Lyrans or their descendants, the claim may have been more literal than metaphorical. Lyran values in human culture. Beyond biology and technology, the Lyrans also seeded their values. The emphasis on freedom that we find in human history, from rebellions against empires to the universal yearning for self-expression, echoes the Lyran spirit. Even when humanity falls into cycles of control and domination, there always rises a countercurrent, a cry for liberty. That cry is the Lyran inheritance within us. Our love of art, music, and storytelling also reflects them. Just as the Lyrans wove beauty into their lives, so too have humans always sung, painted, and carved, even in the harshest conditions. To create beauty is not just a pastime, it is a survival mechanism, a way of affirming the spirit against despair. This too is Lyran, the trauma of the forefathers. Yet we must also acknowledge that we inherited not only the light of the Lyrans, but also their shadow. The trauma of their wars, their exile, their fear of domination, these patterns echo in human history as well. Why do we struggle so deeply with cycles of war and peace? Why do we create empires that rise and fall, repeating patterns of conquest and collapse? Some believe it is because we are reenacting the ancient trauma of our forefathers. The wounds of Lyra were passed down to us, not as punishment, but as lessons to be healed. Humanity may be the stage where those old conflicts finally find resolution. The Starseed Awakening. In recent decades, many people around the world have reported a strange sense of connection to the stars, a feeling that Earth is not their true home, that they are here on a mission. These individuals often describe dreams of other worlds, memories of non-human lives, or a yearning for cosmic family. They are known as Starseeds. Among them, many identify with the Lyrans. They speak of remembering lives in Lyra, or in Lyran-descended civilizations like the Pleiades. They feel drawn to freedom, to creativity, to breaking old systems of control. Whether one views this as literal memory or as deep archetypal resonance, the effect is the same. The Lyran essence is reawakening within humanity. This awakening suggests that the connection to our forefathers is not just history, it is alive. The Lyrans are not distant ancestors long forgotten. They are living within us, calling us to remember, to rise, and to heal the wounds of the past. Our eyes to the stars. Have you ever wondered why humanity is so obsessed with the stars? Why we build telescopes, send probes, and dream of space colonies even before we have solved our problems on Earth? It is because we are not looking outward. We are looking homeward. Deep down, some part of us remembers the stars as the place we came from. This longing is the Lyran bloodline calling us back. It is the voice of our cosmic forefathers whispering in our DNA, urging us to return to the family of civilizations we once knew. The connection between the Lyrans and Earth is not speculation. It is woven into our myths, our biology, our values, and our very yearnings. We are their children, carrying both their light and their wounds. Their story is not just a cosmic tale, it is the foundation of who we are. The wisdom of the Lyrans. When we speak of the Lyrans as our forefathers, it is tempting to focus only on their appearance, their history, or their role in seeding humanity. But perhaps their greatest legacy is not physical at all, it is their wisdom. For what use is ancestry if not for the lessons it carries? The Lyrans lived, loved, struggled, and grew long before humanity walked the earth. And in their experiences, they distilled truths that remain as relevant today as they were millions of years ago. The philosophy of freedom. Above all else, the Lyrans valued freedom, but for them, freedom was not simply the absence of chains or the ability to do as one pleases. It was a sacred principle, the condition necessary for consciousness to flourish. To the Lyrans, every soul was a spark of the infinite source, eternal, unique, and irreplaceable. To suppress that spark through control or domination was not merely unethical, it was an affront to creation itself. Thus, their societies were built around the idea that diversity and individuality were not obstacles to unity, but expressions of it. They taught that true freedom was the alignment of one's actions with one's authentic essence. To live otherwise was to fall into illusion, to be enslaved not by others, but by fear. This philosophy explains both their greatest achievements and their greatest conflicts. It gave rise to cultures filled with art, exploration, and innovation. But it also brought them into direct conflict with the Draconian Empire, whose values of control and hierarchy stood in stark opposition. The wars that followed were not merely territorial, they were ideological. In them, the question of freedom versus control became a galactic struggle that still echoes in humanity's own history. The path of the soul. Another central element of Lyran wisdom was their understanding of the soul. They knew themselves not merely as bodies, but as travelers in eternity. For them, incarnation was a school. Every life, whether lived in joy or hardship, was a lesson in becoming. They taught that souls choose their incarnations, selecting circumstances that will best help them grow. Thus, even suffering was not meaningless. It was an opportunity, a classroom in which the soul could learn resilience, compassion, and strength. This teaching resonates strongly with human spiritual traditions. The Hindu and Buddhist ideas of karma and rebirth, the Egyptian concept of the soul's journey through the afterlife, and the Native American vision of the eternal spirit all echo this Lyran philosophy. Perhaps these ideas were not born independently, but gifted to us by our cosmic ancestors. The balance of masculine and feminine. The Lyrans also held a deep reverence for balance, particularly between masculine and feminine energies. They understood that every being carries both, the masculine as the force of action, protection, and clarity, the feminine as the force of intuition, nurturing, and creation. In their societies, neither was elevated above the other. Both were honored as essential parts of wholeness. Leaders often ruled in pairs, embodying balance between the two principles. Spiritual practices emphasized harmonizing these energies within the self, creating beings who were strong yet gentle, decisive yet compassionate. This wisdom is something humanity continues to struggle with. For much of our history, the imbalance of these energies has led to domination, oppression, and fragmentation. The Lyran teaching reminds us that true power comes not from domination of one over the other, but from integration, harmony with nature. Despite their advanced technology, the Lyrans never saw themselves as separate from their environment. They lived in partnership with nature, designing their cities and technologies to enhance rather than exploit. Their energy sources were based on resonance and frequency, drawing from the natural harmonics of the universe rather than depleting finite resources. Their architecture was aligned with planetary grids, amplifying natural energy flows. Their healing practices used sound, light, and vibration to restore harmony to the body and spirit. This approach reflects a wisdom humanity is only beginning to rediscover. As we face ecological crises on Earth, the Lyran example reminds us that technology need not be destructive. It can be an extension of nature if guided by reverence and wisdom. The lesson of conflict. Yet, the Lyrans were not naive. They knew that wisdom is tested most in times of conflict. Their wars with the Draconians forced them to confront fear, loss, and the temptation of vengeance. Many Lyrans fell into cycles of violence. Others turned away from war altogether, choosing instead the path of spiritual mastery. This division created diversity within their diaspora. Some groups became warriors, protecting free worlds against tyranny. Others became mystics, retreating into inner dimensions to cultivate peace. Both responses were valid, for both reflected the lessons their souls sought to learn. The deeper teaching was this: conflict is not inherently evil. It is an arena for growth, but the ultimate goal is not endless battle. It is the transformation of conflict into understanding and of fear into wisdom. The Heirs of Lyra. For humanity, these teachings hold profound relevance. We live in a world torn between freedom and control, individuality and conformity, love and fear. We wrestle with the same dualities our forefathers did. The Lyran wisdom reminds us that these struggles are not signs of failure. They are part of the soul's curriculum. Each generation, each individual faces the same choice: to live in fear or to live in authenticity. The stakes are high, but the potential is even higher. When we choose freedom, not just political, but spiritual freedom, we honor the Lyrans. When we create beauty, when we live in harmony with nature, when we seek balance within ourselves, we continue their legacy. The return of the forefathers. There are those who say the Lyrans still watch over humanity. Some believe they communicate through dreams, guiding starseeds to awaken to their mission. Others claim encounters with tall, human-like beings whose presence carries the unmistakable weight of ancestry. Whether literal or symbolic, the message is clear. The wisdom of the Lyrans is not lost. It is alive, waiting for us to claim it. Humanity is at a crossroads, just as the Lyrans once were. Will we choose freedom or control, harmony or destruction, fear or love? Their story is our story, their wisdom is our inheritance, and their hope is that we will not repeat their mistakes, but transcend them, becoming not just heirs of Lyra, but co-creators of a brighter galactic future. The wisdom of the Lyrans is not ancient history. It is a living current flowing through our veins, our dreams, and our struggles. By remembering it, we remember ourselves. By embodying it, we fulfill the destiny our forefathers hoped for us. The legacy of our cosmic forefathers. Human history is often told as if we are alone, as if our story began in caves, grew into cities, and will end in the stars without any hand but our own guiding it. Yet, if the story of the Lyrans is true, then we are not alone. We never have been. Our story is part of a much older, much grander tale, one written across constellations and galaxies. The Lyrans are not simply our ancestors, they are the mirror through which we glimpse our own potential. Their triumphs, their failures, their struggles with freedom, balance, and conflict are not alien to us. They are human because we are them. And their legacy, if we are wise enough to embrace it, may yet define the future of Earth. Remembering forgotten origins. The first piece of the Lyran legacy is memory. For thousands of years, humanity has lived under amnesia. Our myths tell of gods descending from the sky, of teachers who came bearing knowledge of fire, farming, and writing. Ancient temples align with stars. Legends of star nations persist in cultures that never knew one another. These are not accidents, they are echoes of the Lyran story. But in the march of history, in the rise and fall of empires, we forgot. We became convinced we were small, isolated, and powerless, or worse, that the stars were cold and indifferent. To reclaim the Lyran legacy is to remember, not just intellectually, but soulfully, to feel in our bones that we are children of the stars, that our dreams of flying, of exploring, of reaching into the cosmos are not fantasies, but memories, that our hunger for freedom, truth, and beauty is not random, but inherited. The seed within humanity. The Lyrans planted more than myths. They planted seeds, literal and spiritual. Within our DNA are whispers of their essence. Within our spirit, the longing for higher truth. Modern science may one day uncover the genetic mysteries of humanity's sudden leaps, the unexplained jumps in intelligence, creativity, and self-awareness. Spiritual seekers already know these are the fingerprints of our cosmic forefathers. But their gift was not meant to make us copies of them. We are not simply extensions of Lyra, we are something new. Just as children inherit their parents' traits but walk their own path, humanity is meant to carry forward the Lyran legacy while forging an identity uniquely our own. Our present crossroads. Yet here we are, at a crossroads not unlike the one the Lyrans once faced. The struggle between freedom and control still plays out on Earth. Our technologies grow more powerful, yet our wisdom lags behind. We dream of the stars, but we pollute the soil beneath our feet. The Lyrans knew this tension. They too wrestled with how to balance advancement with harmony, individuality with unity, and conflict with compassion. Some of them failed, and worlds were lost. Others succeeded, and their civilizations flourished for millennia. Their story is a warning and a guide. It reminds us that the outcome is not predetermined. We can destroy ourselves, or we can rise. The difference lies in whether we choose fear or wisdom. The return of the Star Elders. Many spiritual traditions speak of a time when the ancestors will return. The Hopi tell of star people watching over humanity. Some channelers describe Lyrans contacting us through dreams, synchronicities, and inner knowing. Others claim sightings of tall, radiant beings with feline grace and human warmth. Whether literal or symbolic, the message is the same. The forefathers are not gone. They walk beside us, unseen yet deeply felt, waiting for us to awaken. Their return is not a spectacle of ships in the sky, though some believe that may come, but first a return within. When humanity remembers who we are, the connection to Lyra becomes clear. Living the Lyran legacy. But what does it mean, practically, to live the Lyran legacy today? It is not about worshiping them or idolizing the past. It is about embodying the values they carried. Freedom, honoring the sovereignty of every soul, resisting control whether external or internal. Balance, healing the split between masculine and feminine, science and spirit, mind and heart. Harmony with nature, building technologies and societies that nurture the planet rather than consume it. Wisdom in conflict, facing our struggles with courage but choosing understanding over endless vengeance. Creativity, allowing beauty, art, and imagination to guide us into futures not yet dreamed. Every act of love, every moment of courage, every choice for truth over fear is a thread in the great tapestry of the Lyran legacy. Humanity's future among the stars. The Lyrans once looked to the stars and wondered what their children would become. Now, we stand at the threshold of becoming that answer. Humanity is reaching into space. We are sending probes, building stations, and dreaming of other worlds. But our greatest journey is still ahead, the journey of consciousness. The legacy of the Lyrans is not just about where we came from, but where we are going. One day, Earth will no longer be the only cradle of humanity. We will walk on other planets, sail the currents of the galaxy, and perhaps one day meet our cosmic kin face to face. When that day comes, the question will not be whether we are alone. It will be, what kind of beings have we become? Have we learned from the past? Have we honored the wisdom of our forefathers? Have we chosen love over fear? The eternal circle. And perhaps, when that day comes, we will see the pattern more clearly. For as the Lyrans once seeded humanity, perhaps humanity will one day seed new life. We will become the cosmic forefathers for another race, carrying forward not just our DNA, but our wisdom, our stories, our hopes. The universe is a circle of creation, a spiral of ancestry. We are both children and parents in its endless dance. To embrace the Lyran legacy is to step into that circle with awareness, to honor what came before, and to prepare what comes after. The story of the Lyrans is not just ancient history. It is not merely myth, or speculation, or starseed memory. It is a living inheritance. It is the whisper that tells us we are greater than we believe, that our struggles are part of a much larger journey, and that our destiny is written in the stars. They were our forefathers, yes. But more than that, they are our teachers, and through us, their legacy continues. Humanity is the bridge between Earth and the cosmos, between the past and the future. If we walk that bridge with wisdom, we will not only honor the Lyrans, we will become worthy ancestors ourselves. The torch has been passed. The question is, how will we carry it? Encounters with the Lyrans. If the Lyrans truly are our cosmic forefathers, then their story cannot be confined to distant myth or ancient memory. To remain only in the past would make them symbolic, like archetypes in old legends. Yet the accounts from people across the world, in visions, in dreams, in unexplained encounters under the stars, suggest that the Lyrans are not gone. They are here, reaching across dimensions to remind humanity of its heritage. These encounters, though varied in form, share striking similarities, a feeling of homecoming, of deep recognition, as though the soul remembers something the mind had long forgotten. First contact in modern times. Reports of contact with the Lyrans began to surface more openly during the UFO wave of the 1950s and 1960s. While much attention was given to sightings of saucers and the enigmatic greys, some contactees described a very different kind of being. They spoke of tall, radiant figures with human-like features, beings who looked so much like us that they could walk among humans unnoticed, yet their presence was so commanding, so filled with light, that they could never truly be mistaken for ordinary mortals. George Adamski, one of the earliest and most controversial contactees, described meeting tall, Nordic-looking beings who came in craft of dazzling light. Though he did not use the term Lyran, later researchers connected his descriptions to the archetype of Lyran visitors. Adamski's encounters may have been embellished, yet the seeds of the narrative were planted. By the 1970s and 1980s, other experiencers began reporting beings who explicitly identified themselves as coming from the Lyra constellation. These beings did not speak of conquest or domination. Instead, they came as teachers, warning humanity about the dangers of nuclear weapons, environmental destruction, and spiritual forgetfulness. They carried a simple but profound message: humanity must remember who it is. The phenomenon of starseeds. Among the most profound types of encounter are not those of flashing lights in the sky, but awakenings within the soul. Across the last several decades, countless individuals have reported what is now called the Starseed awakening. These people feel a deep, unexplainable connection to Lyra, They are drawn to the constellation Vega, to feline imagery, to ideals of freedom and creativity. Some recall vivid dreams of living in worlds bathed in twin suns, of crystalline cities and temples where songs resonated through the very air. These are not random imaginings. Often, starseeds feel alienated on Earth until they come across the Lyran narrative, and suddenly their lives make sense. They describe a recognition so profound that it brings tears. For them, the encounter with the Lyrans is not external, but internal. It is the moment they realize their soul carries the memory of another world. Regression hypnosis has reinforced these experiences. Subjects under deep trance have described lives as Lyran beings, recalling details of culture, architecture, and philosophy that mirror one another's accounts. These stories often arise from people who never knew of each other, yet they speak of similar scenes, feline-like features, societies devoted to art and exploration, and the heartbreak of fleeing after devastating wars. Encounters through dreams and meditation. For many, encounters occur not in waking life, but in altered states of consciousness. Dreams, visions, and meditations become doorways through which the Lyrans make contact. Some dreamers describe being taken aboard luminous ships where they are shown holographic images of Earth's future, possible paths of destruction or flourishing. Others are taken to star temples, where beings of light place their hands upon their heads, transmitting waves of love and understanding. Meditators, especially those practicing with sound frequencies, often report visions of tall beings with feline eyes standing in golden light. The beings do not always speak in words. Instead, they communicate through feelings, through direct knowing. The message is always the same. You are more than human. You are part of us. Awaken. These encounters, though subjective, leave lasting impacts. People describe feeling transformed, more compassionate, more purposeful, more aware of their role in humanity's awakening. In this sense, the encounters are not passive experiences, but catalysts for personal growth. Physical sightings and contact. While many encounters are visionary, there are also reports of physical sightings. In rural areas, witnesses have described luminous figures appearing at the edge of forests or fields, radiating an otherworldly glow. Some describe their ships, large, shimmering craft that seem to phase in and out of visibility, not like mechanical vehicles, but like living organisms of light. A handful of contactees claim direct physical meetings. They tell of tall beings, often 7 to 8 feet in height, with muscular but graceful builds, golden or light brown skin, and eyes that seem to hold galaxies within them. Some carry subtle feline features, high cheekbones, elongated eyes, and movements of feline grace. The overwhelming impression in these meetings is love. Not romantic love, but a profound parental love, as though the Lyrans see us as their children. In these rare encounters, the beings often emphasize Earth's current state of crisis. They speak of ecological collapse, of technological misuse, of spiritual amnesia, yet they never condemn humanity. Instead, they encourage, reminding us that we carry within us the strength to overcome. Encounters across cultures. Perhaps the most compelling evidence for Lyran encounters lies in their universality. Across cultures, people with no knowledge of one another have described similar beings. In Native American traditions, star beings are often described as tall and radiant, descending to teach the people sacred ways. In Hindu myths, the Devas are portrayed as luminous, human-like beings who descend from the heavens to guide. In Egyptian lore, the goddess Sekhmet, depicted as lion-headed, may preserve the memory of Lyran feline features. In African traditions, the Dogon tribe speaks of ancestors from the stars, specifically the bright constellations like Sirius and Lyra. These cross-cultural accounts suggest that encounters with Lyrans are not modern inventions. They have been ongoing for millennia, woven into the fabric of our myths and religions. The emotional signature of Lyran encounters. If there is one unifying feature of Lyran encounters, it is the emotional impact. Those who experience them describe a sense of coming home. Unlike encounters with Greys or reptilians, which often inspire fear, Lyran encounters leave behind peace, empowerment, and awe. Some experiencers weep upon awakening, unable to explain why. Others describe the feeling of being hugged by an energy so vast and loving that words cannot contain it. Many feel activated, as though a dormant part of themselves has been switched on. This emotional resonance may be the greatest evidence of all, for what better sign of ancestry than recognition at the soul level, the subtle nature of their presence? Why then do the Lyrans not reveal themselves openly? Why do they not land in Times Square or broadcast themselves on television? The answer may lie in their philosophy. The Lyrans respect freedom above all else. To reveal themselves openly would risk overwhelming humanity, stripping us of the choice to awaken on our own terms. Instead, they appear subtly, in ways that respect our free will, dreams, visions, synchronicities, and encounters that can be doubted if one chooses. In this way, they offer guidance without coercion. This is the paradox of their encounters. They are both undeniable and deniable. Those who experience them know they are real. Those who hear secondhand may dismiss them as imagination. And perhaps that is exactly how the Lyrans intend it, to give humanity the freedom to believe or not, to awaken or to remain asleep. Encounters as mirrors. Ultimately, every encounter with the Lyrans is also an encounter with ourselves. They do not come as saviors or rulers, but as mirrors. In their eyes, we see what we are capable of becoming, beings of freedom, wisdom, and harmony. The recognition we feel is not only of them, but of our own hidden potential. Encounters with the Lyrans remind us that our connection to them is not ancient history, but a living relationship. Whether through dreams, visions, physical sightings, or the awakening of starseed souls, their presence continues to ripple through humanity. They come not to dominate, but to remind, not to give us all the answers, but to awaken the answers within us. Their encounters are less about proving their existence and more about helping us remember our own. How do we know so much about the Lyrans? When we speak of the Lyrans as our cosmic forefathers, the natural question arises, how can we possibly know this? After all, no telescope has captured their faces, and no official government disclosure has pointed to Lyra as humanity's birthplace. And yet, the information we have about them is vast, sprawling across ancient myths, spiritual teachings, esoteric traditions, hypnotic regressions, and the testimonies of modern contactees. It may not come neatly packaged in a science textbook, but woven together, these threads form a tapestry of memory so rich and consistent that it cannot be ignored. Knowing the Lyrans is not about proof in the conventional sense. It is about remembrance. The knowledge survives because it lives within us, encoded in our myths, our art, our genes, and even in our longings for freedom and transcendence. To ask how we know them is to ask how we know our own ancestors. It is carried in the stories we tell, the feelings that arise in us, and the inexplicable recognition that strikes when we hear the name Lyra. On Ancient Myths as Memory, one of the most powerful ways we know about the Lyrans is through the survival of myth. Myths are not simply entertainment, they are coded memory. Egyptian mythology preserves the image of lion-headed deities like Sekhmet. Scholars may see these as symbolic, but in the context of the Lyran story, they preserve the memory of a race with feline features, radiating both wisdom and ferocity. Sumerian tablets, among the oldest writings in human history, describe gods descending from the stars. They were said to seed humanity and teach civilization. While mainstream history interprets these as symbolic tales of rulers, in the Lyran narrative, they are echoes of true encounters with our cosmic progenitors. Greek mythology speaks of gods and titans who warred in the heavens and gave birth to humanity through unions with mortals. This echoes the Lyran exodus and the blending of their genetics with primitive human stock. Indigenous traditions worldwide, from the Hopi to the Dogon of Africa, speak of star ancestors. Many specifically reference the bright constellations like Lyra, Vega, or Sirius as the homes of these beings. These myths, scattered across cultures with no known contact, form a consistent narrative. Luminous, human-like beings came from the stars, often feline or avian in nature, seeded humanity, and promised to return. 2. Esoteric teachings and hidden schools. Beyond myth, esoteric traditions have carried the memory of the Lyrans through secret teachings. The Gnostic scriptures, particularly those hidden in Nag Hammadi, describe cosmic rulers, archons, who sought to enslave humanity, and higher beings of light, who sought to awaken us. Among these beings of light, the Lyran archetype shines, beings of freedom who resisted domination and seeded souls of wisdom. In the Theosophical movement of the 19th century, Helena Blavatsky wrote of root races and ancient star ancestors. Though she did not name them Lyrans, later esoteric teachers connected her Lemurians and Atlanteans with the descendants of Lyran settlers on Earth. Modern New Age channelers have continued this stream, receiving messages from beings who identify themselves as Lyran. While skeptics may dismiss channeling, the consistency across unrelated channels is striking. They speak of freedom, creativity, and the remembrance of humanity's galactic origin. Material evidence, while more subtle, also points to the memory of the Lyrans. Ancient statues and carvings depicting feline-headed beings appear not only in Egypt, but also in South America and Asia. Why would cultures separated by oceans and time create similar images? The construction of megaliths like Stonehenge, the pyramids, and other star-aligned structures suggests that our ancestors were guided by knowledge of the heavens, knowledge possibly inherited from Lyran teachers. Star maps carved into rocks in caves and temples often highlight Lyra or Vega. In some cases, these maps predate the invention of telescopes, raising the question, how did ancient people know the exact positioning of these stars? When pieced together, these archaeological mysteries hint at more than coincidence. They suggest guidance from beings who knew the stars intimately. 4. Regression and starseed memories. In the 20th century, hypnosis began to unlock another kind of evidence, the memories of ordinary people who recalled extraordinary pasts. Dr. Michael Newton, Dolores Cannon, and other regression therapists documented countless cases of people who, under deep trance, described lives not on Earth but on distant worlds. Among these were frequent recollections of Lyran lifetimes. Subjects described tall, feline, or Nordic-like beings, living in societies devoted to harmony, creativity, and exploration. These individuals often had no prior exposure to Lyran lore, yet their accounts were consistent. They remembered fleeing their homeworlds after wars, seeding colonies on Earth and elsewhere, and carrying the sorrow of losing their ancestral paradise. The starseed phenomenon has only grown since then. Thousands across the globe identify as Lyran starseeds. They feel inexplicable attraction to Lyra in the night sky, experience dreams of Lyran cities, and resonate with descriptions of Lyran values. These subjective experiences form a body of living testimony that keeps the knowledge alive. 5 contacté testimonies. Modern UFO contactees and experiencers also provide insight. From the 1950s to today, individuals have claimed contact with tall, radiant beings who often identify themselves as Lyran. Unlike the cold clinical abductions associated with Greys, Lyran contacts are described as loving, empowering, and deeply personal. Witnesses speak of being shown Earth's potential futures, of receiving healing, or of being reminded of their soul's mission. The sheer volume of these accounts cannot be ignored. Even if many are dismissed as imagination, the consistency of detail across continents and decades suggests something deeper at play. 6. The genetic echo. Some researchers suggest that the very structure of our DNA carries Lyran memory. Human DNA contains junk sequences whose purpose is still not fully understood. Esoteric traditions claim that these are remnants of higher dimensional coding, fragments of the Lyran genetic legacy. Studies in anthropology also reveal sudden jumps in human evolution, as if outside intervention accelerated our development. The leap from primitive hominids to modern Homo sapiens remains one of science's great mysteries. From a Lyran perspective, this leap was no accident. It was the moment our cosmic ancestors infused us with their essence. 7. Synchronicities and resonance. Knowledge of the Lyrans also survives in more subtle ways. Synchronicities, symbols, and intuitive resonance. People who begin exploring Lyran lore often report a cascade of coincidences, repeatedly encountering the word Lyra, the harp symbol, or feline imagery. They may find themselves magnetically drawn to certain music, art, or landscapes that feel inexplicably familiar. This resonance may be the most personal form of evidence. It does not convince through argument, but through recognition. Those who feel it know it in their bones. 8. The Lyran legacy in human values. Perhaps the greatest evidence of all is not external, but internal. The values that burn within humanity. Our hunger for freedom, our passion for art, our longing for exploration. These are not mere evolutionary accidents. They echo the Lyran spirit. Even in our darkest times, humans have fought for freedom, created beauty, and reached for the stars. These impulses are our inheritance. They are proof that we are more than products of Earth. We are children of the stars. So how do we know so much about the Lyrans? Because they never truly left. Their memory lives on in myth, in secret teachings, in archaeological mysteries, in regression testimonies, in contact experiences, and in the very structure of our being. We know them because we are them. The stories we tell about the Lyrans are not about some distant strangers in the cosmos, but about ourselves, remembered through the veil of time. In this way, knowledge of the Lyrans is not learned but remembered. It is a homecoming of the soul, an awakening to who we truly are. The song of our cosmic forefathers. In the end, speaking of the Lyrans is not only about describing an alien race, it is about listening to an ancient song that has never stopped playing. It is the song of our origins, the melody of freedom, creativity, and courage that runs like a golden thread through the tapestry of human history. To reflect on the Lyrans is to look into a mirror that shows us not what we are now, but what we can become. When we began this journey, we asked, who are the Lyrans? Why do they matter to us? And after exploring their origins, their wars, their seeding of Earth, their legacy, their encounters with us, and the ways we know them, the answer has become clear. They are not distant strangers. They are family. They are our forefathers in the stars, a legacy that lives within us. Think for a moment about the qualities that make humans unique. We are dreamers. We are artists. We build civilizations, then tear them down, then rise again, always reaching higher. We suffer, but we sing. We grieve, but we paint. We rage, but we also forgive. No matter how many times humanity stumbles, there is always a spark that refuses to be extinguished. That spark, according to the story of the Lyrans, is our inheritance. It is the fire they carried across the stars, the memory of freedom that no amount of darkness could erase, even as wars scattered them, even as empires rose and fell. They never lost that fire, and because they seeded us, neither did we. This is why, across thousands of years, humans have always rebelled against tyranny, why enslaved peoples have always sung songs of liberation, why artists in the darkest ages still carved beauty into stone, why even in a world of suffering, there is always kindness, always love. We carry the Lyran spirit within us, and it cannot be killed. The quiet return. The Lyrans never truly left. They live in our myths, in our DNA, and in the whispers of our soul. But more than that, they are still here. Not in the way Hollywood imagines. No fleets of golden ships hovering over our cities. No dramatic landing on the White House lawn. Their return is quieter, subtler, woven into the fabric of dreams and synchronicities. They return when a starseed wakes up and remembers who they are. They return when someone looks at the constellation Lyra and feels inexplicable longing. They return in meditations, in visions, in fleeting encounters that leave the heart changed forever. And perhaps this is the only way they could return, not with spectacle, but with intimacy, not to dominate, but to remind. For if they truly are our forefathers, then they do not come to raise us as children. They come to meet us as family, as equals in the great cosmic journey. Why the Lyrans matter today. It is easy to think of the Lyrans as ancient history, as a story about the past, but the truth is, their legacy matters more today than ever before. Look around at the world we live in. Humanity stands on a knife's edge. We are capable of incredible beauty, curing disease, connecting the world through technology, reaching into space. Yet we are also capable of incredible destruction, wars, ecological collapse, and a culture of disconnection that leaves many feeling lost. This is not the first time a civilization has stood at such a crossroads. According to the story, the Lyrans themselves once faced this choice. They too had to decide whether to use their power for domination or for creation. And when their worlds were torn apart by war, they learned the cost of forgetting who they were. We stand at that same threshold now, and perhaps that is why knowledge of the Lyrans is resurfacing so strongly in our time. Their story is not only about the past, it is a warning, it is a reminder, it is an invitation. The warning, do not repeat the mistakes that tore Lyra apart. The reminder, you are more than you think you are. The invitation, awaken to your true heritage as children of the stars, the Lyrans and the human heart. If we strip away the details of feline features, crystalline cities, and interstellar migrations, what remains at the heart of the Lyran story? It is love. Love for freedom, love for creation, love for family, love for life itself. Every encounter, every myth, every memory carries this same signature. When people describe meeting the Lyrans, they speak of a love so vast, it brings them to tears. When starseeds awaken, they describe a feeling of coming home, as though they have finally found the missing piece of themselves. This is not the love of saviors rescuing victims. It is the love of kin, reminding us of our strength. The Lyrans do not come to save us. They come to remind us that we can save ourselves. And in that reminder, we find empowerment. A personal connection. Perhaps the most profound part of the Lyran story is that it is not abstract. It is deeply personal. For some, it comes in dreams, vivid visions of standing in golden cities, of looking into feline eyes filled with wisdom, of hearing songs that vibrate through the soul. For others, it comes in synchronicities, stumbling across the word Lyra again and again until it feels like the universe is whispering. For others still, it comes as a deep knowing, an unshakable sense that they are not fully of this world. And maybe, if you are listening to this, you feel that too. Maybe something in this story resonates in a way you can't explain. Maybe you feel the tug of remembrance, as though part of you has been waiting to hear these words. If so, that is no accident. It is the Lyran legacy within you stirring, calling you to remember. Looking forward, humanity's next step. The Lyran story does not end with them. It continues with us. Just as they seeded colonies across the stars, we too may one day seed other worlds. Just as they learned from their struggles, we too must learn from ours. If we choose the path of fear, domination, and disconnection, we risk repeating their mistakes. But if we choose the path of love, freedom, and creation, we can fulfill their dream. The dream of a humanity awakened, united, and shining its light across the cosmos. Imagine a future where Earth becomes what Lyra once was, a beacon of art, creativity, and freedom. Imagine our descendants looking back at us not as a broken species, but as the generation that finally remembered who we were. That is the future the Lyrans are guiding us toward. That is the future waiting to be written. The final gift. As we close this journey, let us return to the essence of the Lyran message. It is not about spaceships, nor technology, nor even cosmic history. It is about remembering. Remembering that we are more than flesh and bone. Remembering that we are more than earthborn. Remembering that within us burns the fire of freedom, creativity, and love, the same fire that once burned in the hearts of our Lyran forefathers. When we remember, the universe itself begins to shift. We see differently, we act differently, we create differently, and in that shift, the song of the Lyrans plays again, not from distant stars, but from the human heart. So perhaps the question is not, do the Lyrans exist? Perhaps the question is, can we remember them within ourselves? For whether they are beings in ships of light or archetypes encoded in our DNA, their presence is undeniable. They live in our myths, our dreams, our longings, and our very souls. And maybe that is the true gift of the Lyrans, not to prove themselves, not to dazzle us with cosmic wonders, but to awaken the wonder already inside us, to remind us that the stars are not foreign, they are home. So the next time you look up at the night sky and your eyes are drawn to the constellation Lyra, pause, feel, listen. You may just hear it. The faint, eternal song of our cosmic forefathers, still calling, still guiding, still waiting for us to remember. Conclusion: the echo of Lyra in the human soul. To gaze upon the star-strewn tapestry of the night sky is to look upon a vast and silent library of our own forgotten history. The twinkling points of light are not merely distant suns, they are the embers of our origin, the silent witnesses to a saga of epic proportions that began long before the first human walked the earth. At the heart of this cosmic story, burning brightly in the constellation of the Lyre, lies the memory of our cosmic forefathers, the Lyrans. Theirs is not a tale confined to the realms of speculative fiction or esoteric fantasy. It is the foundational narrative of humanity itself, a story written in our DNA, echoed in our myths, and felt in the deepest, most inexplicable yearnings of the human spirit. The journey of the Lyrans is the archetypal human journey, magnified across eons and light years. It is a story of a brilliant, creative, and freedom-loving people who achieved a profound balance between technological mastery and spiritual wisdom. Yet, it is also a story of profound tragedy, of a paradise lost to catastrophic conflict with forces of control and domination. This great diaspora, born from the ashes of their homeworlds, was not an end, but a magnificent, painful beginning. Like celestial seeds carried on the solar winds, the scattered Lyrans became the progenitors of countless humanoid civilizations, the Pleiadians, the Vegans, the Sirians, each a unique branch from the same ancient root. And it is from this root that we, humanity of Earth, ultimately sprang. Our connection to them is not merely a matter of ancient genetic seeding or the benevolent guidance of sky gods in our primordial past. It is a living, breathing legacy that manifests in the very core of what it means to be human. Our insatiable drive to explore, to push beyond the next horizon, is the Lyran spirit of adventure echoing within us. Our profound capacity to create art, music, and beauty, even in the face of immense suffering, is their creative fire burning in our hearts. Our eternal, often bloody, struggle for individual freedom and sovereignty against all forms of oppression is a direct reflection of their foundational conflict with the Draconian ideal. The Lyran legacy is not a remote historical fact. It is the emotional and spiritual substrate of our species. The encounters with these beings, whether through ancient myth, modern contactee accounts, or the intimate internal awakening of starseeds, all carry the same unmistakable signature, not of fear, but of a profound, overwhelming love and a sense of cosmic recognition. This is the critical evidence that transcends mere anecdote. It is the feeling of coming home that countless individuals report, the inexplicable pull toward the star Vega, the deep resonance with ideals of freedom and harmony. This is not information learned, but knowledge remembered by the soul. It is the quiet, persistent call of our family, reminding us of our true identity and our place in a vast, interconnected galactic community. Therefore, the ultimate importance of the Lyrans is not about proving their existence to a skeptical world. It is about what their story empowers us to become. They are our mirror, showing us both our highest potential and the shadow of our deepest fears. They demonstrate that a civilization can achieve technological marvels without losing its soul, that it can face unimaginable darkness and still choose to scatter seeds of light. Their history serves as both a warning and a guide for humanity at our own precipice, as we grapple with the same existential choices between unity and division, creation and destruction, love and fear. The Lyrans do not await us as saviors in the sky. Their quiet, subtle presence in our dreams and synchronicities is a deliberate act of respect for our free will, an invitation to awaken on our own terms. They offer not salvation, but remembrance. The torch was passed to us millennia ago. Our mission is not to worship them, but to embody their highest ideals, to become a planet of freedom, creativity, and balanced wisdom. To heal the ancient wounds of conflict within ourselves and our societies, and in doing so, to finally resolve the ancient war between light and dark that once scarred the heavens. In remembering the Lyrans, we remember ourselves. We are the children of stars, born from a legacy of both magnificent beauty and profound resilience. We are the living continuation of their song. The question is no longer if they are our cosmic forefathers, but how we will honor that inheritance. Will we succumb to the cycles of fear, or will we rise to meet our destiny as a beacon of light in the cosmos? The answer lies within us, in every act of creativity, every stand for freedom, and every moment of compassionate connection, for we are the Lyrans' greatest experiment, their most distant children, and their living hope. The Song of Lyra is not a memory. It is a melody waiting to be sung again, this time in the key of humanity. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I love hearing from you. Check out more videos on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.